morning. Thank you all for coming today. My name is Jeff Eckhoff. I'm the Director for Planning and Development Services for the City of Sioux Falls. It's my pleasure today to announce to you a project that we're moving forward with on the rail yard, and so we're going to get into that in a little bit. We have the developer here that you'll get a chance to meet and get a chance to see the project that he's bringing forward. We're very excited to enter into this agreement with Jay Christensen and Christensen Development out of Des Moines. And but I just want to take a second on this particular site with the rail yard. And I want to talk to you just briefly about why downtowns are important and why they are important to the cities. And so, first of all, a healthy downtown really is a sign of a healthy city. And it's how we take care of our core. It talks a lot about how we take care of our entire city, and it speaks. So you think about cities you've been to that are vibrant and active. Often there's a vibrant and active downtown that accompanies that. It's an economic development driver. You look at the density, you look at the property tax and sales tax collections from our downtown, it's huge, and it's very impactful for a city and allows us to do a lot of good things throughout the city and not just in the downtown. It's an amenity for the community. It's in our entertainment district. If you look at the Pavilion and the Orpheum, the State Theater, the Levitt, the Sculpture Walk, and the entertainment venues and shopping and restaurants downtown, it is a focal point and amenity for our entire city. And lastly, and I think something that gets overlooked is it's a powerful workforce development tool. And you think about our young professionals in our community and the amount and then you talk to any of them about our downtown and the vibrancy of it and how they utilize that. So downtown development is incredibly important. The other thing I'd like to talk about is this particular site, the history of this. If you remember, this has been around for a while. This is the result of decades of planning and investment by the private sector and by the city. All the way back from Phillips to the Falls to where we are today. Back in 2005, for some of you, the congressional delegation at that time, which were Senators Thune and Johnson and Representative Herseth, received a congressional allocation or earmark for this project to allow us to buy the site and allow us to do some of the initial remediation of that site. And then it took about a decade of that time then for the whole process for the BN to work with the BN on the negotiation to buy the land and for them to get ready and get prepared for their, because they had to build a new switch yard and those type of things. And so we actually took us 10 years. It was 2015 when we actually closed on the property. And then we did a rail yard redevelopment plan, and then in 2017 we began soliciting RFPs and interest in that site. 2019 we entered into our first sale with Pender Properties for what is today Rail Yard Flats, and then 2 years later in 2021 we also entered in with Pender for what is now under construction as Sharapa Place and the associated development around that. So. Here it is 3 years later, and we're pleased to introduce you Jake Christensen with Christensen Development out of Des Moines, and he will share with you some renderings and more information about himself and the project. So, Jake.
Thanks, Jeff. Morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. I appreciate it. I've been so impressed with Sioux Falls and the city as a whole, but specifically the members of the city council and city staff who've been instrumental in getting to where we are today. So you see him on the street, give him credit. And Councilman Sales is in the room, has been a huge part of it. So with that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the project. But before I go into any detail about it, I thought maybe I'd tell you a little bit about Christensen Development and why we are interested in downtowns. I've been a real estate developer for 21 years. And in that time, almost every project that I've completed has been in a downtown environment. Downtown Des Moines being the most notable, and the majority of our projects are in downtown Des Moines. But we've also worked in downtown Omaha, as well as Iowa City. This particular site is very much in line with the projects that we've taken on in Des Moines. And as Jeff mentioned, this is a former rail yard. The redevelopment of land or redevelopment of buildings is about 98% of the work that my firm has completed. This particular site is interesting in large part because of the location. It's so similar to what we call the East Village in Des Moines. The East Bank of Sioux Falls is almost identical in nature to what the East Village in Des Moines was about 10 years ago. And so for me, it's a real unique opportunity to take what we've learned in the East Village of Des Moines and apply that to this site here in Sioux Falls. If you've been to Des Moines, a couple of projects that you might recognize, they seem to be the must stops are Zombie Burger as well as the Iowa Tap Room are two examples of projects that we've completed in Des Moines. I get asked all the time, why Sioux Falls? And I mentioned a little bit about the impact that the City Council and Economic Development staff have had on our desire to be here. I also would be remiss if I did not acknowledge ISG, and specifically Steve Watson and his efforts to essentially recruit us to come up and take a look. We've worked with ISG in Des Moines on a number of projects, and so when they asked us to come and take a look a few years back, it was a pretty easy yes, but it was also easy to see why they wanted us to come and take a look. So they've been a great partner, and we also are partnering with Journey Construction for the actual construction of this project, and recently engaged Bender Commercial to assist us with the commercial leasing as well. So with that, I'll move into the project itself. What you see in this image is what we will complete over the next 5 years. The building on the right of the image, right on 8th Street, will be a mixed-use building. The first floor will be retail. We've had a number of conversations with Jeff Slurslick and Ann at Pendar Properties, and we want our development to be cohesive with what they've successfully accomplished across the street. And so credit to Jeff and Ann for the hours and significant number of hours that the two of them have dedicated to engage with me, help me get up to speed, and then be a good partner. So I'm not sure I've ever had a more warm welcome from what you could call a competitor. And I think I subscribe to the same school of thought that Jeff does, specifically that more is more in an urban environment. And so it just goes along with the whole theme of the welcome that we received. So with that, our mixed-use building, the first floor retail, will directly interact with the retail on the other side of the street and engage the pedestrian, as well as the connection of the bike path along the eastern portion of the site. Jeff's done some great work on his portion of the site, and we intend to continue that continuity and have that part of the engagement. We also expect to have where we're recruiting an active use on the eastern side of the building, specifically on the first floor, to make sure that it engages the pedestrian as well as bike traffic. And then on the upper floors of the 56,000 square foot building will be Class A office. And so when we interviewed for the opportunity to be able to work on this site, we promised that we want to make sure we under-promised and over-delivered. And we said, at a minimum, we can do mixed-use buildings with multifamily. But you've had two huge projects be delivered to the market or announced at that time in terms of office. We said we'll see if there's anyone else out there that wants to be a part of the downtown office scene, and that has been a resounding yes. We've got really strong activity and expect to make announcements in the near future about our anchor tenants. The balance of the site includes a 180 stall parking structure, and then the remaining 3 buildings are slated to be multifamily apartments, all geared towards the downtown workforce. This image is looking southwest of the first building. You can also see the parking ramp to the left of the main office building. You start to get a feel for what we're trying to accomplish in terms of the engagement of the pedestrian and the bike path. And then this is my favorite image. The downtown or office in general has changed since the pandemic, and so what you see in this image is our beginning efforts to have an active and engaging office space. An overall theme in the office market is make it compelling. If you want me to come into the office, you better give me a reason why. And so that occurs in a number of ways, but we firmly believe that it's a combination of the built environment that we create, so you can see a rooftop amenity that the office tenants can enjoy, as well as the biggest amenity is actually the downtown itself. And so with what has already occurred in downtown Sioux Falls in terms of restaurants and entertainment options, that's the biggest amenity that office market users are looking for when they're trying to figure out where they're going to be adjacent to. Actually, was in a meeting yesterday with a Des Moines company that has operations in Sioux Falls, and they're extremely excited about the opportunity to potentially be a part of this building for that very reason. They want to get they're currently in a suburban location, and they want to get their people closer to the action. And as Jeff mentioned, the downtown or the workforce is a very competitive situation, and we hope to be able to add an option for companies to locate in the downtown. This concludes, actually I might make one more comment. Our company believes that in order to benefit from a community that you need to be a part of the community. And I don't live in Sioux Falls, but if you take a look at my record in Des Moines, we're a significant partner in terms of civic service throughout every member of our company. And we're not a huge company, but every one of us is on multiple boards and contribute part of our treasure and time to the communities that we're in. And we have every plan to do that here as well. So with that, that concludes my remarks. I'll pass it back to Jeff.
Thank you, Jake. So I just briefly, just so excited to have him in the market. It's been a great journey as we've gotten to know him and see the similarities between Des Moines and here, and that natural progression as communities of our size and age. The transition between an industrial, when downtown was a place for our industrial partners to be, to now where it's being redeveloped into these magnificent developments that we see today. Jake is somebody who we've worked with for several years. Introduced to him as he made his first trip to Sioux Falls. I've been able to actually be down in Des Moines a couple times and tour his projects. A couple years ago, Councilor Sale and Councilor Selberg went down with us, and we spent a day looking at his properties, meeting with staff from our counterparts from the city of Des Moines, and just had such a good feel of the design and flow and his understanding of, as you mentioned, the activation of that space and how that fits in. And he just really understood what we're trying to accomplish here, and we saw what he was able to accomplish there. And so we're excited about the fit, and like I said, we had a couple councilors go down and spend some time with him, and so we're just really excited about this new face in our market. We're excited about the opportunities that are here, and with that, there's also this afternoon at 4 o'clock at the council informational, we'll be talking more in depth about the project, the city's role in that, and Jake will be talking more about his project and more in depth with the council at that time. So if you want that information, you can certainly attend or tune in. So with that, we are open for questions. Thank you.
I'm curious if you have any more details on the sort of housing apartment side of this, how many units might be added, and is there any affordable housing component as part of this development?
Thank you for that question. I was remiss in telling the scale of the apartments. So approximately 230 apartments will be added in the 3 buildings. And I would define these as, it's a different term here. These are really targeted at young professionals, and I would not call them luxury. There's certainly been some luxury product that's been delivered. And so we're really aiming to be in that zone for young professionals.
There is a lot of development downtown. Is there a need for more of this?
I think that's a fair question. I asked the same question when I interviewed for the opportunity to develop this site, and the answer is yes. What happens in a market when you get a supply and an excitement like what has occurred with Sioux Steel and Sharapa, other people start to take note. And when I mentioned that there are aspects of Sioux Falls that feel like Des Moines 10 years ago, Des Moines went through a similar phase where the suburbs saw the bulk of the development. And then there was a point where there was a more inward look at the opportunities that existed in the core. The number of years that I've been coming up here and learning the market, we see the exact same thing occurring here. There's certainly a limit to how much supply can be delivered at any one time, and that's why we're working closely with Jeff and Ann to understand the absorption rate of their office product as well as their apartments. And so the commitment I made to them was that we wouldn't deliver apartments until they were reaching stabilization. it appears as though that won't be an issue. The other point I would add is that in Des Moines, each year for 7 years, we doubled the supply of apartments. And with that increased supply, the demand actually followed suit. And it reached a point, all of the developers was like, this is an unlimited pool. We did reach a point where we finally found what the actual absorption rate was for downtown Des Moines, and I believe that will occur here, but it hasn't yet.
How would you kind of classify what downtown Des Moines was and what it is to get to the point it is today? Describe the boom and just kind of, for people who haven't been there recently, don't know what it's about, the vibe of it, how would you describe it and its evolution?
So I've lived in Des Moines 27 years now, and when I moved to Des Moines, we had a really strong office market downtown. We had about 55,000 people who officed downtown, but there was about 1,000 people who lived there. And at 501, you could pretty much shoot a cannon down any street. And anecdotally, the top 20 restaurant list when I moved to Des Moines was almost entirely chain restaurants, and they were almost entirely in the suburbs. Juxtapose that with what it is today. We've got almost 17,000 people living downtown. We have an 82,000 strong workforce downtown, and the top 20 restaurant list has dramatically improved, and most of those are in or around downtown. So very different. We've got very active. We're not a 24-hour city yet, but we've had really strong growth due to a number of factors.
Question on the office building. Do you have a sense, or can you give us a sense of the types of industry this development might be bringing to downtown?
Sure. In the Class A office market and with the types of amenities, we actually expect to see a combination of different users, everything from creative type firms to financial services firms and kind of everything in between. Our footprints are designed to be smaller than what the other projects have delivered. They had the luxury of the big tenants wanting to be in there, so that was a perfect approach. With the majority of those larger tenants having found a home, now we're set up, we have a 10,000 foot floor plate. So we set up really well for 2,000 to 10,000 foot firms to be able to find a Class A office environment for their companies.
Jeff, can you talk a little bit about the process that went through in selecting? It sounds like this was a long process. You've obviously visited, and I think you said that was even a couple of years ago. Was that?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the process and finally selected?
Sure.
It was an RFP or that kind? You know what I mean?
Sure. So the city now with our property, we go through what's called a negotiated sale process. And so once we put a property out for sale, we accept proposals, people that are interested in it. It's not this full RFP that it used to be. It's more of a negotiation process where we work with them. Once we get interest, we actually had interviews. We had two parties propose on this site. We had a internal committee made up of city staff, city council, and we interviewed them. And we chose Jake above those because of the density, the amount of investment, the scale and scope of the project. And then we entered into this period of unprecedented activity going on with the two large projects. We went into this whole time of interest and material costs. And so it probably took a little longer, but I think it's a much more thoughtful process. It allowed us to work with Jake along the way to get a product that fits the best, and the timing is the best. So it was a little longer probably than normal. Some of that was just the circumstances of what was going on around us between existing growing development and the market environment.
Another one for you, Jeff. What other types of uses were considered for this land besides office, development, retail, restaurants, or was there?
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks for that question. So when we look at our downtown developments, we're always looking at the activation of the space and how it plays with the rest of it. So we always are looking for that mixed use on the first floor. Often that's, again, a restaurant, it's coffee shop, those type of things that activate the use that people will travel to and it'll be walkable for them. And then along with that comes office space, which is the next natural and residential. So pretty much any project that we were looking at or anything that we encourage downtown, if you look at the past projects we've done, that's the recipe. It's mixed use, office, and residential, and then that combination changes based on the project, the size of it, the location, those type of things. But that recipe remains the same on all of our projects.
So no other types of developments, like a park or anything like that? This was going to be this type of thing?
Yeah. Yeah, so in downtowns, we really try to maximize that investment, and the cost of developing downtown is so much higher than anywhere else. Some of it's our ground and the bedrock, and some of it is just the constrained spaces you have to build in. And so because of that, we want to maximize, we want to go up in height, and we want to utilize that space in an efficient way. And so dog parks, and certainly we want green space and amenities, but for example, surface parking lots, not the best use. If you look at any planning philosophy, not the best use of that space. Same thing here.
Are there any like tax increment financing or any other like sort of incentives that the city has talked about in conjunction with this development?
Yes, there'll be a full package that we'll be talking about, and we'll have more detail on that at the incentive, or pardon me, at the informational meeting this afternoon.
Kelly?
Is the city investing any money in this project?
So it'll be a land sale of the site, and then we'll be working with Jake on an incentive package to include a TIF to it. But as far as us actually putting money into it, the money we've put into it was with acquisition and what we've done to prepare the land. If you go way back, there was utilities that had to be moved. There was environmental work that we've done. That was all part of that earmark money back in 2015 when we closed on the land. So we've had that investment in that to prepare the land to where it is today.
I have another one for Jay. With regards to it, it's clear that the office space, the apartments targeted at young professionals. So when it comes to potential restaurants and/or retail, is that also? And you mentioned Zombie Burger in downtown Des Moines. So I mean, what kinds of considerations or thoughts have gone into the type of restaurants we might be seeing in this area?
I think that we haven't picked any one particular type of restaurant, but I think that if you look at most of our developments, we work really hard on recruiting the quality of operator. That's usually the first thing that we're looking for. Somebody asked me if I've named the development yet. The answer is no. When I have done it, then usually when we are successful in landing the anchor tenant, they just call it whatever the anchor tenant is. So we'll be working really hard to live up to those goals of activating the street and the pedestrian experience and offer options that don't currently exist. So it's a long answer to your question that I don't know yet, but the conversations we've had so far have focused around dining operators who would be open for lunch and dinner.
I just wanted to confirm where exactly this is. Is it on the south side of 8th Street?
Yes,
And how many acres?
just about 4.
Thanks you all so much for coming.